morning and welcome to Workforce Skills, how we connect human value in an increasingly automated world. Today's session is really an opportunity for you to have a think about what this might mean for you. We've got no idea where you're coming from in terms of what your journey is in relation to automation. We'll have a chat about that later. So what we've done is we've created something that is both a little bit of curated research, which is a little bit of input, and we've also created something that's a bit of activity as well. So you get an opportunity to have a chat to your colleagues, as well as listening from us. So it's not just us talking at you for 45 minutes. You'll be pleased to hear, as are we, because we might lose voice by the end of today. So without further ado, just to explain a little bit about who we are. My name's Ro Gorell. I'm a director at Change Optimised.
And I'm Charlotte Moore, also director at Change Optimised.
So we specialise in helping leaders in the digital world with using things like coaching, training, mentoring, facilitating, essentially anything which is about the people side of how you actually transform an organisation so that it's fit for the future in terms of where we're going in a digital world. So that's what we do. So what I'm going to do now, though, is give an opportunity for you to have a think about something and have a chat with people around you. So what I'd like you to have a chat about is obviously introduce yourself, and then have a chat about what you expect from employees. What do you want from your employees? Just a couple of minutes doing that, and then we'll have a quick chat back in the room. So introduce yourself and have a chat. Okay, so you'll see the value of human connection immediately. So the energy level in the room went up by about 20-fold. When he started talking, there was almost like a palpable sigh. It's like, oh, we can talk, we can connect. So it's part of our human instincts that we want to connect with people. So this is a really good example of why that's important, that machines can never replace that human one-to-one connection. So, what came out of the conversations? Let's hear what you came up with.
Go for a beer.
Oops, sorry?
Go for a beer tomorrow afternoon.
Go for a beer? Okay, yeah.
Attitude.
Attitude, yeah.
The right attitude.
The right attitude, yeah.
Ongoing learning.
Ongoing learning, yeah.
Being switched on when you're at work, so
Yeah. So you want people to be present and switched on, yeah, yeah.
Well, loyalty and commitment.
Loyalty and commitment, yeah.
So grow and learning and developing and doing the job.
Grow and learning and developing and doing the job, yeah.
For us, it was the balance of working hard and having fun.
Yeah, wow, okay. It's really interesting because obviously you're the third group, and the kind of conversations that you have are kind of this ilk. It's more that high level stuff and more that human stuff. We've been doing a lot of research around what organisations are looking for and why this drive for AI and automation. And surprisingly, it's faster, cheaper, more productive. We want our staff to be faster. We want them to do more with less. But that hasn't come up in any of the conversations that we've had in these workshops. So it's really interesting that the research is saying one thing, and yet human beings, when you talk to them like this, are saying something different. So obviously the reason why automation and AI is awesome at doing all of these things is because it doesn't get tired. It doesn't need to take breaks. It doesn't need that human connection to get motivated and zipped up. And also it doesn't get cranky, because if something happens on the way to work, sometimes that makes us cranky and we're not as productive because we're thinking about stuff that's happened in our daily life. So kind of that's where AI is really, really good, where automation is good, because it actually takes away the repetitive stuff, it takes away the human factor that then decreases productivity, which then, guess what, releases our creativity, our things that actually make us human, the things that add value to conversations. When we talk to customers, we're adding value to the conversation, aren't we? We're having a conversation with them, rather than a moment where it's gone to chatbots and you never actually get to speak to a human being. That will change in the future, because that's like first level. We'll then move to another level where we actually do bring back humans into that transaction, because we can now do that because it's cost effective to do that, because all the other stuff is being done by technology. So what we're going to do today then, as I say, we're going to share some of our research that we've been doing really over the past year or so, This is the kind of stuff that really gets Charlotte and I excited, so we will get animated and energized because this is what we love. We see it as an opportunity. And in doing that, we also want to invite you to be part of that conversation as well. So we've got a little facilitated activity, which we call an experiment. And hopefully from that activity as well, not only will you come up with some ideas that you can take away and put into action, you'd also have something that's very simple that you could use straight away tomorrow if you wanted back in your organisation. Some of you may already be familiar with it, but we'll talk about that later. So the aim of today really is to make it as interactive as possible and as exploratory as possible so that you go away with some creative ideas and some strategic thinking about what you might do differently when you get back to work. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Charlotte, who's going to take us through the first part of the research. Charlotte, over to you.
Thank you. And I also just remembered we are having video taken and photographs, so please just be aware that that will be going on around you while we're actually going through this session. So hopefully everybody's okay with that. Okay, so I'm actually not going to talk, which is a strange thing for me, but I'm just going to show you this very quick video.
That I find very helpful.
Okay. Has anybody seen that one before? No. It's a pretty powerful piece of information being shared there. And if you think that was 13 years, what's actually happened is actually quite phenomenal. And obviously anybody with children will also realise that the whole education paradigm as well needs to shift fairly rapidly. And they're shifting it themselves, in fact. I mean, I can get my children saying, "Mum, why am I doing this? A computer can do this easily. I don't need to be thinking about this." So it's quite a challenging time for us, not just in business, but also from a society perspective, because this and the technology has huge implications for us as human beings and how we work and live together, hopefully in peace as we go forward into the century ahead. But obviously the thoughts and the paradigms and the ways we've done things to get to this point aren't actually going to particularly serve us well going forward. So we as leaders and individuals in a society need to think about how we're thinking about things in a different way. So we need to challenge ourselves on our own thinking as well, which is about what we're talking about today. So how many in the organisation, how many people in the room today are actually using AI or some form of robotics in their business already? Show of hands. Okay, so again, slightly under a third, I'd say, of people in the room. Obviously, that growth, it's not just necessarily about robotics and AI. There's a lot of areas as well where technology is driving change in organisations. And in terms of being able to be ahead of that and riding the change, and the research that's coming out from all over the world, and things like Davos, the World Economic Forum a couple of weeks ago, one of the key themes was around skills and skill sets and the big challenges ahead. And there was actually really interesting, I don't know how many of you have gone to the site, there's lots of fantastic information on there and videos and white papers on the future of work. And there was one discussion forum that I watched, which had the head of SAP, IBM, and the things that they're doing, ahead of Procter & Gamble, the things they're doing in terms of their workforces and the skill sets. IBM have already started on that pathway maybe 7-8 years ago around how they're not actually looking at people's degrees wholly anymore. So a degree doesn't actually guarantee you a job in these organisations. They're actually bringing in apprenticeships, but very different forms of apprenticeships, and how they're working with people who've got very different skill sets, but are still vital for the future of their organisation. So there's a lot of data out there, and I was also referring to the research that's obviously been done here by the CEO Institute as well, around the change and how you're actually, as leaders, going to manage that change. And it's going to need a different skill set to maybe what's happened in the past. So there are challenges, but there are also massive opportunities to take on board. So in terms of workforce skills, this is again some of the research that's shown through. Again, this is a very high-level summary of it, but this has come from obviously some of the bigger consulting companies, such as McKinsey, PwC, and also a very good organisation called the Institute for the Future. And if you look at that, we know the things that can be transactional tasks, things that are more repetitive. That's where AI and technology and robotics will be able to come in and take that work away from humans. However, there's going to be a massive need, and there already is an increasing need for people to have those higher cognitive skills, that adaptive thinking, sense-making, creativity. Also, obviously, the technology skills. I mean, it's not just solely about technology skills. That's the other key thing. Yes, great if you've got that ability to do advanced data analytics, but it's not the be-all and end-all. There are other skills we're going to need. Social and emotional skills are going to be absolutely vital to how you manage that interaction with your fellow human beings. Because at the end of the day, the competitive advantage that your organisation is going to have in the future is not necessarily going to come from robotics and automation, because that will become a level playing field, right? Because most people will be doing it. So where your value will come from will be truly in your people, how you get them to work together, how you get them to enhance their creativity and collaborate, because that is what's going to give you competitive advantage. That's what we're going to deliver to customers, because at the end of the day, as a human being, we really want to interact with another human being. We don't want to interact necessarily with a robot. Okay, so that's really key in terms of moving forward. So how is it, what can you do as a leader of your organisation to really get on the front foot with regards to those skills?
Okay. So let's just go back to our friend repetitive tasks. So what happens when some of those repetitive tasks are replaced? And this is based on research around different kinds of organisations, different countries that are already using the technology that we're talking about. So for example, you've got job displacement that could happen for routine repetitive tasks. That means that you've got to replace it with something that's higher value. So that has huge implications not only for organisations but also for society. What happens to those people who maybe don't have those higher cognitive skills? Well, guess what? There is also work that needs to be done in that face-to-face human connection industry, particularly around we're going to live longer. So we talked about lifespan being one of those drivers. So actually caring for people as they get older is going to be a boom industry. So people don't want to be taken care of by machines. They want to be taken care of by other people. And so you've got potential opportunities for displaced jobs to actually move to different industries, which obviously means reskilling. And also, in terms of that sort of job opportunity, it means that you can actually use technology with humans to create a better solution. So, for example, managing logistics around Alzheimer's patients, for example, you want to know where they are. If they don't know where they are, they get very upset and confused if anybody's had a family member with dementia. It's very distressing for you and for them. So if you've got some way of actually managing that through technology, then you can actually take time and spend more time on that face-to-face human stuff, which is actually what the person needs. They don't really need that logistical stuff so much. That's not what's going to help them in the long run. It's that human-to-human connection. So hopefully you can see there you've got an opportunity to take some of the displaced workers and actually retrain them. Obviously, not everybody is going to be fit for that, but there are going to be other opportunities in other industry sectors. That's just one example. And then you've got what I call the Star Trek view of the world, being a Star Trek fan, full transparency, where we actually disrupt whole industries. So China is an amazing place. I went there in 2009. I cannot believe how much it's changed in less than 10 years. They have fast food restaurants where you go in, it's got facial recognition, no cashier, facial recognition. You go in, you say, right, I want a pot of noodles with beef and, I don't know, tofu or whatever it might be. And they take your order, and then a machine actually prepares it for you. $1.50 gives you a nice bowl of noodles. So McDonald's will no longer be able to compete with that kind of industry disruption, because actually that means that you don't need people in that process. And this is where we get super strategic thinking. So my Star Trek world, that has implications for world hunger. Because if you can actually produce food in that way, it means that you can actually work out perfectly nutritional values and make sure that everybody has enough food and there's no food wastage. I realise that's a bit sort of way into the future, but I did say it was Star Trek, which isn't in this century, by the way. So they're just 3 examples of how our creativity can actually be an opportunity and how we can use technology to get rid of some of the stuff that we as humans aren't particularly adept at, because we tire. We can't, we get cognitive overload and we can't think through things when we're tired. So we can take that away, and then we can use our skills, our creativity, our compassion, our ability to think strategically and think bigger picture. Because remember, technology is one domain. At the moment, it's one domain. Whereas we can actually shift paradigms. We can think in a different way. We can imagine. Machines can't do that. So, having given you that little insight into some of the research and amazing stuff that's out there, first of all, hopefully that's inspired you to go and find out more, because there is amazing stuff. What we're now going to do is we're going to hand over to you, and this is where we're going to do a little experiment in terms of a tool that you can use straight away after today. And we're going to basically divide you into 3 different groups. We've got 3 questions, or 2 questions and a quotation, on the flip charts. And we'd like you in your groups to have a discussion about those. You're going to spend 5 minutes on that, and then you're going to move flip charts. So we do need somebody to be a flip chart owner who will stay at the flip chart for the whole of the 3 rounds, and we'll be able to feed back to the other groups as they join the flip chart at the beginning of a new round. So is everybody okay with that? Mm-hmm. Yep. So while you're sitting in your seats, just because we're standing between you and lunch, we did start a little bit later, so hopefully you'll give us a few minutes grace. So first of all, thank you to the flip chart owners for doing an awesome job in scribing and feeding back to colleagues. Well done on that, and thanks to everybody else for contributing some brilliant conversations there. I had a couple of things, one of them in particular, which again got my futuristic brain thinking, which was what happens to the repetitive tasks that we take out of jobs. What do people do? There's some research at the moment that's questioning our 9 to 5, Monday to Friday work mentality, because in the world of the future, guess what, we probably won't need to do that kind of work anymore. So our concept of what work is will also change in the future, and there is research around that as well. So that just triggered just from that conversation. So say, you can think really big on this, or you can think really small. It depends whether you want to stick in one domain or go really, really multi-domain. So hopefully as well from that exercise you saw that having the one person stay at the flip chart also mirrored that sort of repetitive learning, that the more groups went through, the easier they were, it was able to explain what the conversation was about, what the questions were about, what had come up from the previous time. So whilst we're not robots, we do actually have that repetition is also a great way of learning. Also, this technique, as you can see, is really simple. You did 5 minutes at each round. We gave you some questions obviously related to workforce skills, but you can use any questions. You know, think about the context in which your enterprise is working. What are the key questions that you need answering in your environment today? This is a really great way of collaborating across the organisation to actually get some great input and start conversations. And guess what? There's a conversation going on here about collaboration and the coffee room catch up. People then find out who does what, and they start to naturally network with people that can actually help each other. So it's a really simple tool. Obviously, one thing that we would like to do is, if you've been to the mindfulness session, then obviously to use that reflective space to think about what came out of that conversation for you. What one action can you take that is actually going to help you move forward from today? What can you actually do? So if nothing else, I hope it's inspired you to take some action when you leave here today. So just by way of summarising that activity, we've picked out 4 simple things. Some of these you're going to be doing already, some of them you might not have thought of, some of them you might be doing different things, but we picked out just 4 things just to get you thinking. The first thing is to do research around your particular industry. Work out, is it going to be disrupted by somebody that's going to take away the McDonald's franchise by creating a machine that actually works out how to serve food and create it and do all that good stuff. Second of all, define the skills and talents that you're actually going to need moving forward. So what kind of problems are you going to actually need to solve? Thinking strategically, I heard somebody from a company over here talking about getting their product translated into 110 languages. That's thinking strategically and creatively. And I think you said that helped your business as well. So it's that kind of thinking. There you are, I was trying to find you. And then map your current resources, because we still need to stay grounded in what's happening today. So we still need to know what are our resources that we've got today, because without knowing that, we don't know where we need to go from there. What sort of skills do we actually need to bring into our workforce? And by the way, retention is probably going to be really important, because skills are going to be scarce. We already know they are in certain markets. So what skills have you got that you may not be using today in your workforce that you could potentially leverage, and by the way, make their work even more interesting? And the final thing is to address those capability gaps, the way you actually search for talent. Think outside the normal norms of how you actually go about your recruitment process. Get creative with that as well. So that's in terms of our sharing on that what came up for us in those questions around the activity you've just done. Let's just quickly summarise what we've covered today. In a nutshell, we think that in the next 5 to 15 years, well, we think less than 15 years actually, our gut is saying more because we've been around for a while, so we've seen what's happened. We've both worked in the IT sector for a long time, so we know how quickly things change. And we think in the next 5 to 10 years, probably our world will be very different. Certainly for Charlotte's children growing up, it's going to be hugely different. And I think we're really privileged to live at the time we do. This is, you know, I saw a man land on the moon when I was tiny, and I just think of what's happened since then. It's just an amazing world. And whilst it can be scary because we don't know what it means for us in terms of jobs, that's also an opportunity because we can actually broaden our perspective and not just think about our organisation, but think about our corporate social responsibility, where we actually sit in our society, what that might mean in terms of the way enterprises operate within communities. So there's some awesome stuff that we can actually be doing in that space as well, which will be groundbreaking. Second of all, the challenge that you have as leaders is also staying grounded in who you are as human beings as well, and understand how you can help your teams actually develop that capability within themselves. And sometimes we might not feel comfortable with that, and that's okay. It's about understanding where you're starting from and then building on that. And finally, managing that paradox of working in that uncertainty. Nothing is ever certain in this world apart from death and taxes, as they say, and that's really true still. So you've got to prepare for the future, stay present in the current, and manage that paradox. So hopefully today we've given you some food for thought. We've given you a tool that you can use straight away should you so wish. We've given an opportunity for you to share with your colleagues. So what I'd like to do is just leave the final word with one of the guys who I've been researching, who is awesome. YouTube, just find him. His stuff is so easy to access. He is really, really a guru in his field, but he explains it in very simple terms. And what he says is that AI is actually a tool. In other words, technology, we are the master of technology, not the other way around. And what we need to do is we need to remember that we are actually masters of our own destiny. We get to write the ending of our story. And remember that in your organisations. Don't get driven by the technology. Think about what is the story that you're telling, where is it you're actually taking your organisation. So thank you very much. I'm just going to hand back to Charlotte to round off, and then we can have lunch. Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate it. I'm running slightly over. So this is us, Change Optimised. We are on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we also have Twitter feeds, and we do put articles on there fairly regularly. And we would love you to connect with us, and it would be brilliant to follow up from this event. We work with all sorts of different organisations at different scales and different levels. Where to next? So what we'd like to offer for everybody that comes along today is actually to come and have a catch up with us for half an hour, just to see where you are in terms of your journey around your people skills, your workforce skills, and it would be lovely to have a chat with you and see whether there's anything we can help you with, or if not, that's absolutely fine. But also just a case of connecting as well and expanding the network and the community within WA. We do have at the front some small brochures around what we're doing, and also there's a little card there which is just really for you to give your feedback. Very simple, and just appreciate if you'd like to fill that in, because obviously we do very much value feedback, we do respond to it, and that's the nature of how it works. So for us, one of our key values is around collaboration, and that collaboration involves having feedback, whether that's good or bad. So do appreciate your time, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, I'm Bruce Fielding, I'm one of the syndicate chairs at the CEO Institute. I just wanted to, on your behalf, thank Charlotte and Rail. I looked at it, like workforce skills and development. Yeah, I could do with a bit of an updating on modern training method. This is so much more than that. It's been so much more than that. The exercise was really stimulating. So, ladies, thank you very much for your input today, and good luck with it. It's a big challenge. Thanks, folks.